I don't tell this story often. Not because I'm ashamed, although yeah, shame plays its part. But because every time I start to remember, it gets hard to breathe. My name's Mike. I'm 43. When this all began, I had a business, a wife, a daughter. When it ended, there were only memories left. And one question I still can't shake. How did I not see it coming? My business was growing, slow but steady. We weren't some tech behemoth like Google, but we had a solid SaaS product for automating customer support for small and mid-sized businesses. It started in my garage in Austin, then a rented closet, then our first real office, right above a parking lot and a Dunkin' Donuts. The team was small but tight. Joel, my college buddy and co-founder, and 5 others. We worked like one organism. I could disappear for a week and everything would keep running. We had one rule: no outsiders. Only referrals. Only people we trusted. It worked. Money started flowing. Clients started noticing. And then she showed up. Kristen. I still remember the day she walked into the office. White blouse, dark jeans, hair in a loose bun, and a smile that lit up the whole room. She didn't just answer interview questions, she talked like she already belonged. She came in as an account manager. Our client support team was drowning, and I told Joel it was time to hire someone outside the circle. He grumbled, "You know, Mike, outsiders don't like our rules." But I pushed. In her first week, Kristen de-escalated a major conflict with one of our biggest clients, one we were this close to losing. Within a month, she landed a $180,000 contract. By the third, I realized I wasn't staying late at the office because of deadlines. I stayed because she was there. Our glances started lingering a little too long. Her hand brushed mine as we sorted papers. I started making her coffee in the mornings. One day, she left a sticky note on my desk. "You make this place feel like somewhere I want to come back to." I fought it at first. I had a family. A daughter, Sophie, 9, loved figure skating, and my wife's apple pie. My wife, a Caroline. We'd been through a lot together. Mortgage, sleepless nights, that first near failure. But lately, our marriage had become background music. Warm, familiar, but quiet. Kristen was a spark. The affair started in secret. Awkward lunches, work meetings, kisses in the car. It felt like a movie, only way too real. I felt alive. She was ambitious, fearless, sharp, and looked at me like I was the guy. Within 6 months, she was sitting across from me in meetings, arguing with Joel over growth strategies. "Mike, don't you get it? You're sitting on gold. No one's digging," she'd say, snapping her pen and sketching out sales structure diagrams. She didn't just talk big, she followed through. People listened to her. She became essential, even though some folks clearly didn't feel comfortable. The veterans, like Amy, our head of marketing, and Joel, started distancing themselves. One of them hinted that Kristen had too much power too fast. I waved it off. Kristen would just say, "They're afraid of change." And I started listening to her more. And to myself, less. One day, almost without realizing it, I made her COO, Chief Operating Officer. It was my decision. I wanted her next to me, officially, not just emotionally. The paperwork went through fast. And then, what felt like magic began. She cut costs, rebuilt the sales team, brought in fresh investors. I was impressed. Every night, we'd sit down over a glass of wine and talk strategy. Sometimes in her apartment, laptop open, our bare legs tangled under a blanket. She called us a power couple, and I believed we could take over the market. Then came the first red flags. Kristen suggested firing Mark, our senior analyst, the same guy who helped Joel and me build the back end from scratch. "He's slowing us down. Outdated methods. We're scaling, he's not." I was against it. Didn't say anything at first. Then eventually, I said yes, because I was caught in her vision. I started losing the people who helped me build everything. But I convinced myself it was just growth, nothing more. Kristen knew everything now: our finances, roadmaps, client lists, vendor contacts. She even scheduled meetings with VCs on my behalf. But I didn't mind. We were a team. Only, it wasn't the same team anymore. There are moments when you realize you're no longer in control. Not right away. First, you think you're just overwhelmed. Then you tell yourself someone's just being proactive. And then you wake up one morning and realize you're not the driver. You're just a passenger. After Kristen became COO, the changes came like a tidal wave. Fast, bold, unapologetic. She acted like she'd always been in charge, like I didn't put her there, like the role belonged to her by default. The first thing she did was restructure our meetings. Too much talking, Mike. Not enough decisions, she'd say, crossing out our old formats on the whiteboard and replacing them with new KPIs and sprints. I didn't push back. Honestly, it seemed reasonable, even efficient. But then things started getting weird. She fired Lisa from support. Lisa, who'd been with us since day one, who knew every bug, every client, who was the soul of that department. Kristen said she was toxic and not aligned with our growth values. When I tried to argue, Kristen looked at me like a child who didn't understand how grown-ups operate. Do you want to scale, Mike? Or sit in a sandbox with your old buddies? I said nothing. And then I signed the termination papers. Next was Chris, our technical writer. Kristen said she had more modern people who could do the job faster and in a format investors actually read. A week later, I found out we had a new designer I hadn't approved, and a new PR specialist who posted on behalf of the company with a quote from Kristen. Not me. Get used to it, she said. We're not a garage startup anymore. We're a brand. I started noticing a circle forming around her. People she had brought in. Young, ambitious, loud. They looked at her like a leader. They looked at me polite, but distant. The old staff started to disappear. Some left on their own. Others were let go. Joel started skipping meetings. One night, he texted me, "You're losing the team, Mike. And you know it." I didn't reply, because I still wanted to believe this was all temporary. Kristen was just an accelerator, I told myself. A little harsh, sure, but necessary. Without her, we'd be stuck. But now, we were growing. Fast. Confidently. We started landing deals we'd only dreamed of before. Got accepted into the Microsoft for Startups program. We were invited to an expo in Las Vegas, where Kristen gave a speech that had Salesforce folks approaching us afterward. And I felt proud again, even though half the speech hadn't been approved by me. Even though she introduced herself as a co-founder, which she never was. It's for PR, she said, seeing my face. Sounds stronger. People believe in partnerships more than hierarchies. I wanted to say something but couldn't, because once again, it made sense. And for a split second, I thought, maybe I am outdated. Around that time, I started feeling distant from my own company. It was like the building I had constructed with my own hands was being quietly remodeled at night while I slept. Same walls, but everything inside? Different. New faces, new values, new rules. Kristen rarely asked me for anything now. She just kept me informed. I outsourced marketing. It was wasting too much time. Audited your personal meetings, half are inefficient. I gave them to Eric. We've got an all-hands Monday. I'll be presenting our Q4 strategy. I'll be presenting. Not, we. Not, let's discuss. Just I. Plain and simple. Once, I tried to stop one of her decisions, the shutdown of our free plan for small businesses. That plan was our origin, our mission, help the little guys. It's inefficient, she said. Mike, we should be a premium slice of cake, not cheap bread. You didn't even run it by me. If I had, you'd have said no. And I don't have time to explain the obvious to you. And for the first time in this entire journey, I felt fear. Not because she was harsh, but because I realized she now spoke to me like I was one of her employees. Then came the odd things with investors. Meetings without me. Reports I never saw. She began holding strategic sessions with new advisors, people I didn't even know by name. When I tried to step in, she didn't yell. She didn't argue. She just said, "You're in the way. You're slowing us down. I respect you, Mike, but it's time you stepped aside." That day, I left the office. Didn't say a word. Just got up and walked out. I walked 3 blocks without feeling the ground under my feet. Then sat on a bench by the lake and stared at the water like an idiot. Only one thought kept spinning in my head. When did I stop being the captain of my own ship? And more importantly, why did I hand over the wheel myself? Firing one person can do more than disrupt schedules and projects. Sometimes it severs the tendons that held the whole team together. Sometimes it cuts your throat from the inside. It happened on a Wednesday. Just a regular, nothing special Wednesday. No one knew this would be the day everything turned. We had just wrapped our morning meeting, another one where Kristen ran the show. I was used to it by now. Her voice opened and closed the session. My role was reduced to nods and the occasional comment. I was on my way to a Zoom call with a potential partner in San Diego when I saw a message pop up on my phone. It was from Tom Baylor, my old friend, our CTO. We used to sleep on the floor of our first office, eat instant noodles out of foam cups, and write backup scripts by hand every night. He was a genius. Half the core systems we used wouldn't even exist without him. The message was short, up and fired. No explanation. 5 minutes ago. Kristen. I froze. My fingers went cold. My pulse pounded in my ears. It felt like getting punched in the gut. No warning. I rushed to her office. The door was open, like always. She sat calmly at her desk, sipping mint tea and flipping through a pitch deck. You fired Tom? Yes. On what grounds? She didn't even look up. He was sabotaging progress, arguing with team decisions. He was in the way. You didn't even talk to me. Now she looked up. Mike, you're the CEO. Technically. But strategic calls are my domain. And if you want the truth, firing him was a kindness. He was the heart of this team, Kristen. The heart. He was code, infrastructure, loyalty. He was part of the foundation. Foundations are demolished to build taller. My jaw clenched. And it wasn't just about Tom. It was how effortlessly she said it. Cold. Calculated. Like he was just a variable, not a person. I walked out without another word. What followed wasn't a scandal. Not a meltdown. Just coldness. People whispered. A few came to me directly. Is it true? No heads up. Do we matter anymore? And I had no answers. I was the CEO. But I looked like a guest at my own funeral. Some of them actually pitied me. Kristen, meanwhile, acted like nothing happened. In fact, she ramped things up. Held meetings. Rolled out initiatives. Announced expansion plans. At one all-hands meeting, I tried to push back. We need to revisit how terminations are handled. Team cohesion matters more than speed. Kristen cut me off without blinking. Cohesion without results is a swamp. We're building a rocket. People exchanged glances. Some looked down. One or two even smirked. But no one spoke up. Everyone already knew the line had been drawn. You're either with her or you're out. I felt the ground slipping under me. The business I had built with care and belief was turning into something foreign. A polished machine with a frozen core. A few days later, she called me into the conference room. Calm as ever. Mike, it's time we talk openly. Go ahead. She laid a folder on the table. Inside, plans for the next 2 quarters. New partnerships. M&A roadmaps. European market projections. This is where we're headed. But you're in the way. You're clinging to the past. You're not built for the leap. I founded this company, Kristen. And I respect that. Truly. But I'm its future. Look around. The team follows me. Partners listen to me. Your time as a leader is over, Mike. I felt my face drain of color. This wasn't pressure. This was an ultimatum, gift wrapped in velvet. What are you suggesting? I asked, already knowing. She smiled softly. A graceful exit. Publicly, you stay on the board. You keep a stake. We craft a beautiful story. And I keep steering the ship. I stared at her and didn't recognize her anymore. This wasn't the Kristen I'd once fallen for. Not the woman I drank wine with in her kitchen while we dreamed over Fleetwood Mac. This was a shark. Poised, magnetic, but a predator. I stood up. Left the folder untouched. No. She shrugged. Think it over. But not too long. In business, it's not about feelings. It's about efficiency. That was the day the real war began. Her people started ignoring my directives. Clients I'd nurtured for years stopped taking my calls. Her managers had intercepted them. One of our major vendors abruptly pulled out. Later, I learned Kristen had offered them a better deal through a spin-off company she'd registered without my knowledge. She'd been planning this for a while, and it hit me. What I thought was romance wasn't passion. It was a project. Deliberate. Step by step. Strategic. First, win me over. Then, earn my trust. Then take control. She didn't just change my life. She carved me out of it. Sometimes betrayal doesn't sound like a gunshot. It sounds like silence. Empty chairs. Quietly deactivated corporate emails. Silence so loud, you can hear everything you built falling apart. After our last conversation, I had no more doubts. Kristen was building a parallel reality. Not a new world, just a copy of mine. And instead of people, she used my people. I started digging. A friend of mine in a law firm did a little searching. Turned out she had registered a new business entity a month ago, Stratus Solutions Group. Our name? Stratus Support Systems. Just one word off, but legally, an entirely different company. I checked the domain registration. It had been purchased through a proxy, but the IP address traced back to a co-working space where Kristen had recently held partnership talks. The boiling point came that Friday. I showed up early, hoping to talk to the team. Straighten things out. Explain. Convince. Remind them that this wasn't her versus me. We were still us. But the office was half empty. I went to the sales department for desks, 3 monitors off. One desk cleared. A jacket on a chair, but no one in it. Operations? No Alex. No Gina. Finance? Sandra was out. Marketing? Just Claire, avoiding my eyes entirely. At 10:02 a.m., a Slack message popped up from Kristen. The project I mentioned is now live. If you want to be part of what's next, meet me at Lakeview, 214, second floor. 10:30 sharp. It's your call. The door's open. I sat in the conference room, staring at the screen like it was a guillotine. Waiting. Gina left first. Then Alex. Then Jake from DevOps. 5 minutes later, Emma, my assistant. She didn't even look at me. Just closed her laptop and grabbed her jacket. I walked out into the hallway. Kristen was standing by the exit, phone in hand, smiling. You're really doing this? I asked. You said no, Mike. So now I'm just doing it my way. You're stealing my people. I'm not dragging them out, Mike. They're choosing to come. And they were, one after another. Like a slow-motion parade. People I launched our first beta with. People I pulled all-nighters with. People I high-fived after our first 6-figure deal. They walked past me, eyes down. Some looked guilty. Some didn't. But none of them stayed. By noon, only Joel and a couple of shell-shocked interns were left in the building. She played you, Joel said, sitting in my conference room. I warned you. I know. You let her get too deep. I know. So what now? I didn't have an answer. 2 days later, I received a letter, not from Kristen directly, but from the legal team at her new company. It wasn't official litigation yet. Just a warning. I was to cease using certain assets, code bases, and design elements they claimed were co-developed during her time at my company. Technically a warning, but really, a show of force. And then clients started leaving. First was a startup from Chicago, then a restaurant chain in Florida, then a couple of creative agencies on the West Coast. Each one gave the same excuse, personal business reasons. But I knew, because each of them showed up on Kristen's website. New logo, same phrasing, same layout. Only now, her logic, her design, her grip. I Googled her company name. She'd already launched a full ad campaign. Same color scheme, even. I wanted to scream, to punch something. But all I could do was sit at my desk, staring at the front door and remembering how it all began. One night, I came home later than usual. Caroline, my wife, was sitting at the kitchen table. Serious face. The kind of look I recognized. This wasn't dinner. This was a conversation. I ran into Emma at the mall, she said. She told me your company's falling apart. I didn't answer. She also said you're still sleeping with Kristen. I looked up. That's not true. But it was. I couldn't lie. She stood up. Mike, I never thought you were a saint. But I hope the business was your clean space. Looks like even that got dirty. A week later, she moved in with her sister. Sophie, our daughter, refused to speak to me for 2 weeks. Only through a lawyer did I find out when I could see her. That Monday, I returned to the office. It was almost empty. Half the chairs gone. The coffee machine unplugged. The wall clock frozen at 4:17. I opened the filing cabinet. Pulled out one folder, first investor round. 2017. Worn out. A coffee ring on the cover. I held it like an old family photo. And then I saw it. Her new business card. Someone had left it on my desk. Maybe on purpose. Maybe as a joke. Kristen Wallace, founder and CEO, Stratus Solutions Group. I stared at that card for way too long. My fingers gripped it like they wanted to snap it in half. But they didn't. It was thin. But it weighed a ton. I wouldn't call it defeat. Because now I know, sometimes life just strips away everything that's not essential. And leaves you with the core. And the core, as it turns out, has nothing to do with business. Or titles. Or CEO under your name. It's the face you see when you look in the mirror each morning. And back then, I had no face left. After everything that happened, I didn't fight back. I didn't sue. I didn't seek revenge. Not because I was above it. I just didn't have the strength. Or the will. Something inside had burned out, like a light bulb that shone too bright, then popped and went dark. Kristen had taken almost everything. The team. The clients. The market's trust. Even pieces of our code, though repackaged. Lawyers told me I could take it to court, but the cost of that war was more than I had left in the bank. I was alone. Literally. Joel moved to Denver, got a job at a big company where they finally appreciated his talent. We said goodbye warmly, but with long pauses. Too much left unsaid. He knew he'd warned me, and I knew I hadn't listened. The office shut down. We ended the lease. I sold the furniture. The last day was the worst. Empty walls, the smell of paint, and dust in the air. Someone had written on the glass wall in thick marker, "Once you were the captain." I didn't erase it. The house felt emptier than ever. Caroline filed for divorce, officially this time. I didn't argue. She had every right. I'd thrown away everything we built for an illusion I thought was love. I couldn't ask for forgiveness. Couldn't explain. Because I didn't understand it myself. Sophie. She didn't call. On the rare occasions we saw each other, through lawyers, strict time slots, she was distant. Not angry. Just far away. Like I was a stranger sitting next to her. The worst part wasn't the silence. It was the absence. The daughter I used to read bedtime stories to now stared at her phone while I quietly drank water. I moved into a small studio apartment on the edge of town. No fancy furniture. No car. Just a laptop, the same one I used to build platform architecture, now used for sending out resumes. No one responded. Well, almost no one. I picked up freelance work. Sometimes I'd set up CRM systems for small businesses. Sometimes I designed interfaces. Sometimes I just did tech support. Now and then, someone would recognize me. Ask quietly, "Aren't you Mike from Stratus?" I'd nod, smile, and say, "Yeah, used to be." Life became simple. Not easy, just simple. You wake up, make coffee, check messages, answer a client, do the work, eat alone, sleep, repeat. But in that simplicity, something started to heal. I began hearing myself again, deep down, without all the background noise. And for the first time, I asked myself honestly, why did I let Kristen in? The answer came fast, and it stung. I was lonely, emotionally, inside the marriage, inside the company, inside myself. I was starving for recognition, for validation, for awe. Kristen didn't just give me that, she served it on a gold-plated dish. And I ate it all, without question. And in doing so, I betrayed, first and foremost, my own family. Everything that came after? Just consequence. She didn't steal anything. I handed it over. Almost 2 years went by. One day, I got a message from an old client. A small restaurant in New Mexico. Family-run, soulful. He'd heard I helped a competitor of his. Said he wanted something similar, but only if I do it personally. So I went. More gigs followed. Then I met 2 brothers with an idea for a delivery platform, but no team. I didn't join fully. Just helped build the architecture. Later, they offered me equity. I declined. Told them, I don't build empires anymore. I build tools. You build the empire. They weren't offended. In fact, they sent me a bonus. And for the first time in a long while, I bought myself a new laptop. Not because I needed one, but because I wanted it. For Sophie's birthday, I sent her a book on astrophysics. And a note that said, "You are a universe, not someone's satellite." That evening, my phone rang. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was quiet. A little nervous. "Thanks for the book. I already read it. But still, it's cool you remembered." We talked for about 15 minutes. About school. Science. About how she still loved apple pie. And at one point, she said, "You're different now. Not as tired." I didn't know what to say. So I just smiled. I saw Kristen again recently. By accident. It was at a startup conference. She sat in the front row, new hair, new logo, new people. Our eyes met. She didn't come over. And I didn't either. Because there was nothing left to say. Everything had already been said. Sometimes I wonder, if I could go back, would I do anything differently? Yes. Of course I would. I wouldn't have betrayed my wife. Wouldn't have betrayed the team. Wouldn't have opened my heart to someone who never loved me, only used me. But then again, if I hadn't fallen, I never would have learned who I am without all of it. I'm not a CEO anymore. Not a husband. Not a guru. I'm just a man. With a laptop. And a new face in the mirror. With a daughter who calls me dad again.